Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes of questions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And to our witnesses, thank you for being here. What we've heard today and seen play out in the streets of this nation for the past year, straight out of the Trump administration's fascist playbook: cheat, murder, lie about it, practice the art of mass distraction. The American people are not happy about this. This administration's officials are sitting before us. 2 people are dead. I understand that there's an investigation and you cannot go into the details about that. But there certainly appears to be no shame on the part of these officials who've undoubtedly watched some of your officers conduct themselves in ways that I know you don't condone. Not as law-abiding people, right? So I got to give you the benefit of doubt. And I can't understand why you show no shame, no contrition, no remorse for the human lives that have been lost, or for the trampling of the Constitution and the tearing apart of the moral fiber of our nation. They think, apparently, you think, apparently, you've been coached, apparently, you've been called out of the room with a forced break to be told to be more aggressive, to push back against questions. The American people saw that happen. The American people watched as you all looked at each other. Oh, I didn't ask for a break. And clearly you were called in the back to be coached. A halftime locker room pep talk. This isn't a game. These are people's lives.
All right, folks, buckle up. What you just watched was an absolutely heated exchange between Congressman Troy Carter and IC leadership. And let's be honest, this wasn't just oversight. This was political theater. From the very first sentence, Congressman Carter didn't come in looking for clarity. He came in swinging. Fascist playbook. Cheat, murder, lie. That's not a question. That's a campaign speech. Now let's slow this down and unpack what actually happened here.
And it's been asked, you worked on different administrations. What's different? I'll tell you what's different. The approach of how you conduct it, your search and seizure. The reason there were so many others and there were not riots was because people were not being trampled. You had trained officers who knew the art of de-escalation. They understood the rule of law. They understood the Constitution. Yet now we continue to hear lies. Last year, I took members of Congress on an oversight visit to ICE facility. We were told certain things that turned out to be patent lies. They told us things that we witnessed within moments of being there to not be true, yet we continue to hear you and some of my colleagues suggest, don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears, just trust us. Well, the American people can see. And this notion that Democrats don't want enforcement, those are talking points that are wrong. We want rapists and murderers off the street. We want the bad, the worst of the worst, to be arrested and to be deported if they aren't supposed to be here. What we don't want is citizens running down the street being chased by ICE agents, people being shot on the streets by rogue officers who are in fact American citizens. What we don't want is to see people like Ms. Good or Mr. Pretty simply doing what we often say: if you see something, say something. We don't want to see people dying on the streets. So let me ask you a quick question. Mr. Lyons, has ICE ever detained an American citizen such as they are not free to leave, whether it is on the sidewalk, the street, or thrown into the back of an ICE vehicle because they looked or sounded a certain way, even though they said they were American citizens? Yes or no, quickly. I only got 38 seconds.
No, sir.
That's never happened before.
That we've arrested one? No, sir. We've detained individuals to verify identity, but we haven't arrested or deported. No, sir.
Detain, arrest. Check it out. It's
yes, sir.
The same thing. Right. All right. What does an undocumented person look like or sound like? Does it look like Mr. Garbarino? Does it look like me?
Could look like anyone, sir.
Okay, well, how are you training your people? Because you've said and others have said If they sound a certain way, they look a certain way, we're going to stop them. That was quoted by your people. What do you say to that?
So what I say is that ICE does criminal targeted enforcement based on intelligence, and we don't use the color of skin or accents for that.
So the person who said that was wrong. Yes,
We'll let the
person that
gentleman,
was wrong?
we'll let the gentleman get that answer in writing. His time has expired.
First, Carter accuses IC and the administration of trampling the Constitution. That's a serious charge. But what evidence did he present in that moment? None. What we saw was rhetoric, very dramatic rhetoric, but rhetoric isn't proof. Then he brings up the tragic deaths connected to IC activity. Now listen, if there are investigations happening, they should absolutely run their course. Law enforcement officers, like anyone else, must be accountable if wrongdoing occurs. But implying guilt before facts are established, that's not justice. That's politics. And here's something important. ICE exists to enforce immigration law passed by Congress, not laws they invented, not policies they dreamed up, laws on the books. If people are in the country illegally, that's not a controversial statement, that's a legal reality. Enforcement of the law isn't fascism. It's a function of a sovereign nation. Now, let's talk about the emotional centerpiece of the exchange of question. What does an undocumented person look like? That's a powerful line. It's meant to suggest profiling. It's meant to imply that IC agents are running around judging people by skin color or accent. But what was the response? ICE enforcement is intelligence-driven and targeted not based on race, not based on accent, not based on appearance. That's a critical distinction. Every law enforcement agency in this country conducts temporary detentions to verify identity. That's not the same as arresting or deporting someone. And the IC official made that clear. They do not arrest or deport U.S. citizens. Detaining someone briefly to confirm who they are during an operation is not the same as rounding up random Americans off sidewalks. Now, can mistakes happen? In any large federal agency? Of course. That's why there are oversight hearings like this one. But here's where this gets interesting. Congressman Carter says Democrats support deporting the worst of the worst rapists and murderers. Okay, fair enough. But here's the question nobody wants to answer clearly. How do you get to the worst of the worst without conducting enforcement operations that involve identification checks, questioning, and sometimes detaining individuals temporarily? You can't say enforce the law, but only in a way that never inconveniences anyone and never involves identity verification. That's not how policing works. And when Carter claims that in previous administrations there weren't riots because officers used de-escalation, we need context. Border encounters are at record highs compared to prior years. The scale is different. The operational pressure is different. ICE agents are dealing with human trafficking networks, drug smuggling corridors, cartel activity, and repeat offenders who ignore removal orders. That's not a classroom discussion. That's real-world enforcement. Another thing worth noting, Carter suggests IC leadership was coached during a break to be more aggressive in responses. That's speculation presented as fact. Every witness in a congressional hearing confers with counsel. That's standard procedure. Turning that into some halftime locker room conspiracy is dramatic, but again, drama isn't evidence. Let's step back to the bigger picture. This debate isn't really about what undocumented people look like. It's about whether the United States is going to enforce its immigration laws consistently or selectively. A country without borders isn't a country. And enforcing immigration law doesn't mean hating immigrants. It means respecting the legal process, including the millions of people who wait in line and follow the rules. And here's the part people don't like to say out loud. When enforcement drops, illegal crossings surge. When policies are unclear, smugglers exploit them. And when the message to the world is, you probably won't be removed, more people make the dangerous journey. That doesn't just affect Americans. It affects migrants who are exploited, trafficked, or abandoned. Strong enforcement can actually reduce chaos. Now, should IC be accountable? Absolutely. Should investigations into misconduct happen transparently? Yes. But labeling enforcement officers as fascists without proven misconduct undermines trust in every law enforcement agency in the country. There's a difference between oversight and outrage politics. And today, what we saw leaned heavily toward outrage politics. The American people deserve real answers, not viral sound bites. If there are constitutional violations, show the evidence. If there are rogue officers, prosecute them. If policies need reform, debate them honestly. But don't pretend enforcing laws passed by Congress is somehow authoritarian. Because if enforcing existing law is fascism, then every administration left and right that has deported individuals over the last 40 years would fall under that same label. And that's simply not serious. At the end of the day, this exchange highlights the core tension in America right now. Rule of law versus political messaging. And until we have a serious conversation grounded in facts instead of accusations, this debate is going to keep generating heat, but not much light. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe ICE is conducting targeted enforcement? Or do you think reforms are urgently needed? Hit the like button if you appreciate breakdowns like this. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into what's really happening in these hearings. And as always, stay informed.